Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Steam Train. It's 3 p.m. on a beautiful Tuesday, and I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm Mr. Doran, and if you haven't seen the Steam Train before, this is where we cover all sorts of subjects like science, technology, engineering, art, and math that makes the steam in the Steam Train, and we do a fun activity every single day. We also have a morning segment, and if you've missed that already, feel free to check it out on newminds.tv. I'm with New Minds Enrichment, and I hope you guys are all doing well. Now, this week, what we're doing is we're focusing on extremes. People who have done amazing things in all sorts of different fields. Yesterday, we talked about extremes in height. We talked about skyscrapers and structure and engineers and how they do their jobs. Today, we're learning about something I think is even cooler. We're learning about speed, but a very specific kind of speed. We're going to talk about land speed, which is how fast something can go across the ground. So a plane doesn't count as land speed because it flies. A boat doesn't count as land speed because it's in the water. Now, this isn't always a car, but it is a unique mode of transportation, and these are usually very special things that break these records. But first, we need to learn a little bit about how these records work and how they run the land speed test. The test is actually pretty simple. I'm going to look in my bucket so I can see what supplies I have to be able to run my own test, and then we'll go into a story of the land speed record, and then we'll start doing our own scientific test to see which of our toys or cars are the fastest. Now, in my bucket today, I have something to keep time with. I have a stopwatch on my watch. I have some race car tracks. I have quite a few different Hot Wheels. I've got about 8. I have something to write with. Something small to make some notes on. And some tape. I'm going to go ahead and put this away. I also have a large measuring device. I have a yardstick with me. I'm going to put this right here. And I also have an old binder, one of the triangle types. This is a really old one I don't use anymore. It's kind of bent in. Make sure you can get permission to use one of these first. If you don't have one, that is okay. I'll show you some alternatives. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out a test to figure out just how fast any of these cars are and figure out our own land speed test. Because remember, if this is something that's going to be used across the world, we have to have one test that everybody can use at the same time. And here's how the test works in real life. You have your car or vehicle that is going to try and break the record. You have a start line and you have a finish line. And they are 1 mile apart. What they're going to do is they can get as much speed as they want. Their time starts as soon as they cross the start line and as soon as they cross the finish line. But that's not all. Then they're going to start from the other side and go back. So they have to do 2 tests, and they take the middle of the 2 scores. So if one got 180 and one got 160, they would meet in the middle at 170, and that would be their score. The cool thing about this is it's had a really long history, and it's been pretty cool, and the record actually hasn't been broken for about 20 years now. We'll learn about that in a second, but that's just how the test is run. So the car is going to go get as much speed as it wants. The second it crosses the start line, it should be at top speed. And then as soon as they cross the finish line, they're going to start slowing down. And their time is only from the start to finish. It doesn't count the time they sped up or the time they slowed down. It's important to have so many details so you can have a consistent test. Consistent just means it's the same every time. With scientists, and scientists are people who keep track of records, keep track of different things. A scientist is someone who likes to keep track and study numbers and devices and measures. The cool thing is that if you're a scientist, you have something you can always test over and over again. We're going to be scientists today with our cars. So, of course, to write things down, you're going to need some notes for your test. And we're going to run our test in a little bit. But let's learn about how fast the real world cars have gone. The very first land speed record that is pretty awesome happened in 1898. It's almost 120 years ago now. They actually had a vehicle and they got it up to 40 miles per hour. Now that doesn't sound very fast to you. Probably most streets around your neighborhood, as soon as you leave your neighborhood, are probably 45 miles an hour. So this car couldn't even break the speed limit if it wanted to. And this was in France 120 years ago. But for the time, this was really, really fast. Cars were relatively new, and there was especially not a lot of fast ones. They just helped you get from point A to point B, and hopefully they stayed together on the way there. So a car breaking the speed was really impressive, and it was also very dangerous. I'm going to list the records. The place I'm going to list them is the nationality of the driver. So the first driver was French, so the first record was set in France. The year later, he pushed the same car to go a little bit further. He actually got the same car to go up to 57 miles an hour. So if you're driving on a highway, you're probably going 60, 65, sometimes 70. So he's about driving a little slower than highway speeds. So if you saw him on the highway, he'd be going kind of slow. And that was the speed record in 1899. Now we're going to fast forward 5 years. The first time a car broke 100 miles an hour was also still a French driver. This one happened in 1904, and it was going pretty fast. This is the first time we went over 100 miles an hour. It was really impressive. This is still over 100 years ago. So can you imagine 100 years ago walking around and you see a car zooming by at 100 miles an hour? That would be really impressive. Now the first time USA took the record was in 1906, and we got the record pushed all the way up to 127 miles an hour. Now I'm not going to list every single time the record was broken because it's been broken 20 or 30 times, but I'm just going to list the big landmark achievements. The cool thing is that 4 main countries were actually competing in this land speed record. France, Germany, Italy, and America, and actually UK, so that was 5. The cool thing is they all had really fun time doing it, and it was basically a big engineering competition. There wasn't a lot of meanness going around. Some people were mean about it, but a lot of it was just let's see how far we could push people and creation to go. Now in 1927 in America, the first time we broke 200 miles an hour was 1927, done by us. And then we have the record for a while until UK takes it back in 1964. And they actually broke 400 miles an hour, which is an amazing speed. Most cars today cannot go that fast. This was a very special engineered car. This was in the 60s that they did this. It went over 400 miles an hour. If you were driving at this speed, you can cross Texas in almost 2 hours, which is a really big achievement. Texas is huge, especially from the tip of El Paso to the other side. The next thing that happened was this was actually the last time we set a record using electricity, a combustion engine, or steam. Those are the 3 things that cars ran on. They could be a steam-powered car, an electric car, or a combustion car, which is more like a regular engine that you think of today. But then we had a crazy idea. And this is actually where they changed the record. They decided we're going to make rocket-propelled cars. We're going to make cars with gigantic engines and rockets on them that will just launch themselves across. And that's what we decided to do. So in 1963, we had our first jet-powered car, and it went 407 miles an hour. Now, if you've ever seen a cartoon and they have like roller skates, they put the rockets on the back and they boost themselves across the sky, it's pretty much like that. They went really, really fast. The next thing that happened was we broke 600 miles an hour. 2 years later, in 1965, I say we because this also was done by an American driver, and this is really dangerous. So having a driver to drive a rocket-propelled car, even just for a little bit, is really dangerous, so there's a lot of safety that goes into this. So it's just as impressive of the car as it is of the driver to actually push it and get all the way up to 600 miles per hour. And then 30 years later, in 1997, so 20 years ago now, was the last time the land speed record was broken. We actually got a car to go up to 763 miles an hour. That is a crazy amount of speed. Just to think about it, if you wanted to go for 1 minute, 1 minute is all you wanted to drive for, you would go over 90 miles, which is a huge distance. If you were driving in this car, you could definitely cross the United States in about 5 or 6 hours, just from all the way to New York, all the way to California. You could zoom right across, and it would be very fast. Almost, we're getting up to almost plane speed at that point. The super awesome thing was that this is the last time the record was broken, and this also broke something else called the sound barrier. The speed of sound is the sound speed at which my voice or any sound shoots out. Now, if you've probably heard someone talk, you've probably noticed that it sounds pretty instant to you. You've never seen someone mouth move like this, and then the voice comes out later. You hear them pretty much at the same time you see it. But this actually has a certain speed. It depends on the temperature, but it's around 767 miles an hour is the speed of sound. And this car went faster than it during this test. That's crazy. But enough of the history. We want to set our own records. We're going to learn how to do a speed test with our cars. So what I have is I have 3 Hot Wheels tracks. If you don't have tracks, that's okay. Any sort of ramp that you use will work fine. I just happen to have these, so I'm going to use these. I'm going to stick them all together. Actually, I will stick them in this order. Now remember, we're doing a test, so everything has to be consistent, which means it's going to be the same for every test we do. We can't have some be unfair, because that would not be a consistent test. So I have 3 tracks. I'm going to measure how long this is. So I have my distance. Because to figure out our speed, we need to figure out how much time it takes to cover a distance. I know Hot Wheels tracks are feet, so this should line up at exactly the same length as my yardstick, 3 feet. And it does. I'm just going to show you really quick. They are the exact same speed. Not speed. Length. So this is 3 feet. So I'm going to write that down. So my test is 3 feet. You might have more tracks. You might have less tracks. You may do something different, like use your binder to be the starting ramp. And then you have a finish line. But make sure that finish line is marked with something like tape or a piece of string. You want to have a finish line that you know exactly where it is. You don't just want to kind of eyeball it. You want to have an exact line so you can do a precise test. Then I need to figure out how much time it takes for a car to cover these 3 feet. Of course, the cars have to move. So I'm going to use my ramp to make a starting line. I'm going to make sure my car starts right at the edge because I want it to cover all 3 feet. And I'm just going to time, with using this stopwatch, how long it takes for my car to get from one end to when it touches the other one. So I'm ready, set, go. So that was 3.2-ish seconds. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my car, and I'm going to write that down. So test 1 was 3.2. Now you always want to do at least 2 tests. 3 would be better, but I'm going to save some time. I'm only going to do 2 tests for each car. Just to make sure that it wasn't something weird happened and it slowed down, or something weird happened and it got lightning speed for a second. So we're going to go again. 3, 2, 1. And that was about the same, 3.1. Now you notice when I did my test, I'm always looking at the end. The reason is, when I look at the end, I know exactly when the car stops. If I'm looking at the start, I'm not going to know exactly when he stops, so I need to make sure to keep track of it for the time. So that was my first test. That car took 3 seconds. And now I'm going to compare a time. I'm going to use this car now. And 3, 2, 1. Uh-oh, it got stuck. So I need to redo my test to make sure everything is fair. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, this car's not doing too well. This is why I want to make it consistent. So now I know my barriers, it has to finish the track. So I'm going to try it one more time. 3, 2, 1. That one was kind of slow. That actually took 4 seconds. So test 1, 4 seconds. And I'm going to do this test again. 3. Oh, I need my timer. 3, 2, 1. And that was 3.9. So that's almost 4. You'll notice I'm letting go of the car. I'm not pushing it because that would give it an unfair speed. We want everything to be the same because we are being a scientist today. We're trying to break some records. The cool thing is that you can test this with any cars. Maybe you don't have cars. Maybe you just have a ball that you like to roll. You can test it with that. You can use pretty much anything that will roll or move for this kind of test. Maybe even have just a coin you want to drop at the top and have it roll down. Let's see if I have a coin. I do have one left over from this morning, so I can roll a coin down and time that and see how it would do with a different speed. Let's put it in front of the track so you can see it. Oh, that kind of fell. Let's try again. And you can use that to do any sort of test. And that's the really cool part about having a consistent setup. You can try things over and over again. So that's how you would run the test, and now we just need to figure out how to use the numbers. Now we want a smaller time and a bigger distance. We want to have the smallest time we can, the biggest distance we can. We use 3 feet, so we just want to do how many seconds it takes to go 3 feet. So my first one is 3 over 3. And that makes it 1 foot a second. So that means every single second my car is driving, if it kept going the same speed, it would go across one of these orange little tracks, about this far every single second. My other one went 4 feet a second. So we're going to do feet divided by second, so 3 divided by 4. And that makes it about, let me see if I can do the math in my head. There we go, 0.75 seconds. That means every second it covers about 3/4 of one of these. So in 4 seconds, it would end up covering 3 of them. So it is a little bit slower. We did this test and we figured out different speeds, and now I can rank them. I know this blue car that I used first is faster than this other blue car. I realize a lot of my cars are blue. This little plastic car. And I can keep going, and I can use a scientific way to figure out which one of my cars is the fastest, which one's the slowest, and which ones have some middle times. That is all for today on the land speed record. If you enjoyed the land speed record and you really want to know more about the cars that made it, and you want to see what they look like, what a rocket-propelled car looks like, ask your parents to help you, but go online and look up these cars. They're super cool, they have big engines, and they go really, really fast. Thank you guys for tuning in with another episode of Real Inspired Learning by New Minds. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Keep practicing your passions until they become your talents, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.